who don't know me, that's okay. I'm not offended tonight because if we're going to be honest, never really heard of any of you guys either. But I was, for over 16 years, I was the co-founder and lead singer of the Newsboys. It was a pretty amazing time. But 10 years ago, I left the Newsboys and went back to Australia. But I've got the privilege of tonight of talking to you for a couple of minutes. See, the funny thing, people used to look at my life in the music industry as lead singer of one of the biggest Christian bands in the world, influencing millions of people around the world with an incredible positive message of hope. As a believer, of someone having a faith in God. People used to look at my success all the time, and I imagine they used to think, John James! Dude, you must be so talented, you must be so clever, you must be so smart. People used to look at my lifestyle, living, I guess, a successful dream. They used to say, John James, the moment your incredible, handsome, bald head, the moment you came into this world, your parents must have looked at you. Oh, incredible, handsome, bald, chubby baby. You have a great purpose and a plan for your life. You're going to reach millions of people around the world. Now, folks, I've got to tell you, that really sounds nice and it sounds lovely, but it couldn't be further from the truth. Actually, I'm from a very abusive family, a very destructive family. My family was torn apart when I was very young. Mum and Dad walked out. We were abandoned as kids. I had 6 brothers and sisters. I never really knew them growing up as a child. I was sent to live with a relative, with an aunt. I was separated from my other brothers and sisters. Now, academically, school wasn't an enjoyable experience for me like it is for all of you. I was expelled, kicked out of every school I ever attended. Basically, whenever I was at school, a lot of the times it was because local authorities or some adult figure or the police found me somewhere else and they gave me a free car ride back to school. Almost every day of my life as a child growing up, I heard these words yelled at me. John James! You're such a loser. You're useless. John James, you will never amount to anything in life. There's no hope for you. The sad thing about that is when you hear those words yelled at you, shouted at you, said about you almost every day of your life, you actually start to believe them and they start to shape your DNA, the way you view yourself. I can remember being a kid, young teenager, having no sense of value, no sense of worth, no sense of purpose, no sense of vision, no sense of hope for the future. But something amazing happened to me at the age of 15 in this little town in the middle of Nowhereville in Australia. I call that town Loserville. I met this guy in the street one day and he was a youth worker. They'd come to this town to work with problem kids, dysfunctional kids, reject kids, loser kids. And I'm like thinking, dude, pick me, I'd qualify for all of those. Over the next several months, this young youth worker had the most profound influence on my life. For the first time, I met somebody that when they looked at me, the first words out of their mouth weren't, you're useless, you're nothing, you're hopeless. But this guy had the ability to look at people regardless of the colour of their skin, regardless of their ethnic background, regardless of their gender, their age. He had the ability to look at every single person and see that every individual is so magnificent, is so uniquely designed and created by God, that every person is valuable, every person has so much God-given potential. The influence he had on my life was profound. He introduced me to the most revolutionary message I'd ever heard in my life. The most relevant, the most captivating, the most empowering gospel message. The good news of Jesus Christ. A short while later, I moved to the Sunshine Coast, a place called Mooloolaba, and one day I met another young guy and we got talking about music. This young guy's name was Peter Furl. Somewhere in the course... Alright, you know my bald friend, do you? Somewhere in the course of the conversation we thought it would be brilliant to be in a band and bring the good news, what we have, this faith, through music. And myself personally, I thought to myself, could you imagine if you're in a band and you were famous, how much free food you would get? See, I'm Italian. I love food, pesto, you know. It excites me. Really, if you're talking about free food, then I get really excited. So we started this band, the Newsboys. It has no deep spiritual subliminal meaning. If you say it backwards, it doesn't mean something else. I think one of us had a Good News Bible. We were all boys, put the two together. We came up with the name. That's it. Get on with it. I can't stand here tonight and say, from then on, it was a mystical, magical journey, and success just fell in our lap. Yeah, right. We worked hard, you know, good old-fashioned hard work, commitment, discipline. We worked hard, we toured hard, and God was merciful, and He blessed and breathed on our efforts. And one day we were crazy enough to decide we're going to go to America, mate. So we came to your great country, a bunch of young Aussie blokes. We got to your country, we were overwhelmed with the bigness. We were like, crikey mate, this place is big. We worked hard, we disciplined, we travelled, we poured our hearts out. We had a dream and a vision to bring this gospel, the good news to this country. A relevant gospel, a potent gospel, a life-changing gospel. I can't stand here tonight and say my life's journey was a bed of roses. See, sometimes as people of faith, and even as Christians, we have this mindset, you know, if I just do A, B, and C, life will always go to plan. Well, I've lived long enough to know that sometimes life doesn't always go to plan. And things don't always work out how you'd hoped or you'd thought. Somewhere in my life's journey, amongst the success and the fame and the Grammy nominations and the hundreds of thousands of albums and all the money and all the applause and all the autographs and all the cheers and seeing tens of thousands of people a night influenced for the gospel of Jesus Christ, somewhere in that journey, and it never happened overnight, but somewhere amongst my success in the music industry, I began to lose my way. I began to lose what I call my spiritual equilibrium. I remember times coming home and starting to see signs of cracks forming in my marriage, but I ignored that because, you know, I'm in this important ministry travelling around the world. I remember coming home and finding my wife at times crying because she was starting to see the signs of our marriage starting to fall apart. But don't tell anybody. I can't even tell my best mates in the band. So we do what we do, we hide the truth. And I remember being on stage night after night telling people that Jesus is the answer, and yet on the inside I'm hiding a lie because I know my own personal life is starting to fall apart. But I can't tell anybody. I'm the lead singer, the frontman of one of the biggest Christian bands in the world. I can't even tell my mates in the band, my buddies. I even hide it from them, the truth of where my heart is starting to go. Eventually things got from worse to worse to worse. Eventually my wife is on the brink of leaving me. I remember the night we were in the studio cutting the album Step Up to the Microphone, and I went up to Peter and I said, mate, can I talk to you about a few things? He said, sure mate. And I began to tell him the severity of my life and my marriage. He was blown away. He couldn't believe we were the closest of mates. And I even kept this, I even hid it from him. A couple of days later, the band came back and they decided, mate, you know what? Your marriage, your walk with God is way more important than this band. We're going to force you to step down, to resign.